I now declare the 2020 Vernon Town meeting in order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing as we'd like a moment of silence for all town residents who have died and are no longer with us as of the past year. Please be seated. This meeting is being recorded by Brattleboro Community TV. You can watch it later this week on Comcast Channel 1085, Southern Vermont Cable Channel 10, and online at brattleboro.tv.org. For anybody speaking at the meeting, when you come to the point where you want to be recognized, after you're recognized, find the microphone in the center of the room. Please stand and state your name and speak directly into the mic so viewers in the room and at home can hear you. Now, to briefly go over the rules of the meeting, Robert's Rules of Order are the basic rules for this meeting, except where Vermont law takes precedence. The public body cannot change Vermont state law, but you can change Robert's rules with a 2/3 vote if you so desire. All articles must be moved and seconded by the body and restated by the moderator before it is under consideration. The debate on the article may begin. After I restate the motion, the person who made the motion has first right to speak in the debate. Articles may have only one amendment at a time associated with them, and amendments to an article likewise may only have one amendment at a time associated with them. Now, after you've spoken once on a particular article, you'll not be recognized for a second time during discussion unless everybody else who's wanted to speak has had that chance. Robert's rules only allows the speaker to speak twice on a given motion. Division of the House may be requested by one voter before or after a voice vote. Vermont state law allows for a paper ballot at the request of 7 voters, unless the town has made other arrangements before or after a voice vote or division of the House. Debate may be cut off by a motion to move the previous question and a 2/3 vote to do so. All motions, remarks, and discussion must be addressed to the moderator. I'll do my best to recognize you in the order that you've raised your hands. I will tell you, though, that I'm 63 years old, my eyesight stinks, and I can't hear a thing. After being recognized, please stand up, wait for a microphone, and then go to the center microphone. Your speeches now must be confined to the merits of the question. You'll not be allowed to engage in personal attacks on a member of the body or their motives. Vermont state law also prohibits consideration of articles that have not been warned, which means you cannot take binding action on something that has not been officially warned for this meeting. Reconsideration is allowed by Vermont state law until a point is reached where the body has begun working on the next article. It means if you voted down an article, you can make a motion to reopen consideration by a person on the prevailing side. Yes, I'll ask you how you voted, and you better tell me truthfully. Once the next article is on the floor, no more action can be taken regarding the previous article at this meeting. Now, my role as moderator is to help you accomplish the business you intend to do. Please raise your hand and ask questions if you don't understand what's happening, or if you think what is happening is wrong for some reason, or if you want to do something but just don't know how. We'll help. And please tell me if you think I'm ruling improperly. You do have the right to challenge the moderator ruling. Only registered voters of this town may vote at this meeting or at special meetings. If you're not a registered voter, please raise your hand so I know where you are. All right, thank you very much. This is perhaps the only time that a lot of us see each other. In fact, I'm taken aback by the fact that one of our residents died over a weekend and they were not found until several days later. We need to be closer as a community, be able to talk out our differences, still remain friends, neighbors, and community members the next day. I would hope that we conduct our business in a way that we're an example for our children and communities around us, in the way that those who have passed on and lived their lives in this community were examples to us. Now, with that in mind, we're going to open with a couple of members of the Vermont legislature. I'd say I'm opening with two aces in poker technology. Would like to introduce Representative Sarah Coffey and State Senator Becca Ballard for a few short comments. Please give them a nice hand.
Thank you, Tim, and wow, what a robustly attended town meeting. This is really an honor to be here tonight, and I have to say, town meeting is one of my favorite events here in Vermont. Just as the light is getting longer and the sap is starting to run, we come together as communities to engage and debate the school budgets and town budgets and the issues of our day with our neighbors and with respect. So it's really an honor to be here tonight. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak and to share an update from the legislature. And I know you have a long agenda tonight, so I promised him that I'd be brief. So through community meetings, during the off sessions and discussions with my coffee with coffee hours, emails, phone calls, and responses to a survey I sent around in December before the start of the session, I've heard from a lot of you, and it's been so great to hear about your issues and priorities. And it's critical to my work up in Montpelier because it's through you and I carry your voices up to the State House. And in the legislature, I've been focusing my efforts on strengthening our rural economy, ensuring access to quality and affordable health care, equity in education, protecting our environment, reforming our criminal justice system, and taking steps to address climate change. Last year, we took important steps to improve rural broadband to our underserved rural communities, and now a regional effort is underway, and I'm really thrilled to see that Vernon is part of those meetings and discussions. And if you didn't see them on your way in, bugging you about participating in the survey, please do participate in the broadband survey because it's part of an important feasibility study. And this is I believe that we are stronger together, especially as we try to bring our rural communities up to 21st century speed. We know how important it is for our kids in school, for our seniors who might need to access telehealth, and for our economy. And so while the media focuses a lot of attention on what we do on the floor of the House and the Senate, most of our work is done in the committee room. And some of you know that I serve on House Corrections and Institutions, which is both a policy and a money committee. We focus on corrections policy, and there's a lot of work that we're doing this session, and also on the capital budget. And the capital budget is where we take our state-bonded dollars to invest them in important infrastructure that really touches on our communities in so many ways. It's the dollars that go to the Veterans Home in Bennington, to our courts and police barracks statewide. It's to help with our mental health facilities and our clean water, and also for community building grants, which are accessible through to all of you and all of our towns. And so it's really, I appreciate the work that we do in this committee, and really see it as a wonderful way to support our communities through those state and those dollars. And an important initiative that we're going to be doing this year is taking some of that, we hope to be taking some of that capital bill budget and allocate it to some more of our trails throughout the state. And so I don't want to take up a whole lot more time, but I want to let you know I prepared a town meeting report, which I've added to the wonderful materials on this table, and it has my contact information, my home phone number, my email address. So I hope that you'll reach out to me. And before I close, I just wanted to thank, we know that our small towns, it takes an incredible amount of work to make them run and work well. So I wanted to acknowledge and thank the folks who work in the town office here in Vernon, and also the many, many volunteers who serve on the select board, the school board, the planning commission, the Friends of Vernon Center, the Rec Commission, and the library, and the many other committees here, because we know that it's so vital to making our communities vibrant and healthy communities. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing to make our communities wonderful places to work and live. And I hope that you will feel, that you will please, I invite you to be in touch with me if there are ways that I can help in your efforts, because I do see this as a partnership, I really love people, and I love the work that you're doing in Vernon. I'm especially excited about the community garden that happened at the school over the summer, what's going on with the trails in town, and the work that's being done on the Governor Hunt House is just a few of the highlights. It's been a really exciting year from where I sit, of the good work that you're doing here in town. And before I wrap up, I wanted to just say a few things about our delegation. In Windham County, we have communities that have a lot of different needs. But as a delegation, we work really closely together up in the State House. We meet every other week. And I'm so grateful to be part of a high-functioning collaborative delegation. And I say that's not true of all the other delegations. The House members have really strong relationships with our senators. And I think a lot of that has to do with the strong leadership and the collaborative spirit of our senator, Senator Ballant. So I'm really delighted that she could join us here tonight. And I'm thrilled to hear her report and to turn the microphone over to her. So thank you so much, and thank you for your trust in me.
Good evening. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm one of your 2 senators for Windham County, and I get to travel around to many different town meetings on town meeting day and in the few days leading up to it. And I know what I've heard from so many people is they're feeling so sad and anxious and worried about democracy in general, regardless of political party. There is a level of anxiety that I feel when I go out to talk to constituents. And so to come here tonight and to see everyone here and the line out the door when I came, people ready to come here and engage in the democratic process, it is so, so inspiring. So I wanted to start with that. And I also wanted to let you know that Sarah has been a great representative for you in Vernon. And I know that there was some concern, given that she is a Guilford resident, whether she would champion you in the State House. And I need to tell you, there is not a day that doesn't go by when she is asking the question, how is this going to impact Vernon? How is this going to impact Vernon? And so I just want you to know that you are very well represented by Sarah Coffey. So I sit on 2 committees in the Senate. One is Economic Development and Housing, and the other is Finance. And several years ago here in Vermont, we realized that we had sort of kicked the can down the road on housing statewide, and we'd come to a critical place where we had so many employers that needed employees, but there was actually statewide a shortage of housing for those employees, even if we were able to have them come here. And so we made a big investment along with the governor. It was a really great bipartisan effort in 2017. We leveraged, we had a $37 million housing bond, which was the largest investment in housing that the state had seen in over a decade. And we were able to turn every one of those dollars of investment into $5 of additional investment from public, private, and other philanthropic initiatives. So we were able to raise an additional $100 million in housing investments for the state. And so they're scattered throughout the state, over 800 additional units of housing. And this year we're trying to build on that with a couple new initiatives. We wanted to do another additional housing revenue bond, but the treasurer was a little bit worried about what that would mean for our debt ratio in the state. So we're looking at some other investments, and one of them is, I don't want to bore you, but I want to talk to you a little bit about tax increment financing. And it's known as a TIF. And generally in Vermont, when we do tax increment financing, it's the larger towns and the larger cities that get to take advantage of this. And it's a way for you to take some investments from the state to do improvements to infrastructure and sewer and do building in your downtowns that you wouldn't be able to afford otherwise. And this year we said those TIFs have been so important to those larger towns. Why are we not offering something to the smaller towns in these communities? And so we are calling it a mini TIF program, and we're hoping that Guilford and Vernon and Jamaica and Townsend all over the county will find out how they might be able to take advantage of these mini TIFs to be able to afford building in your new downtown as you envision it here in Vernon. So the housing bond is a big thing that I've been working on. Another couple things I just want to tell you about. Finance Committee deals with taxes and housing, but we also deal with pharmaceuticals. And I know from representing one of the counties with the oldest demographic that pharmaceutical prices are killing us. They're absolutely killing us. And if you are someone who requires insulin, you've seen the cost of insulin triple in the last decade. I heard from a Vermonter the other day who's spending $1,600 a month for insulin. If you look at the charts of the 3 biggest producers of insulin, these pharmaceutical companies are clearly engaging in price fixing. There is no other way for you to look at these charts. When one goes up by $100, the other one goes up by $100. And you can see the chart over the course of the last decade. And we are not able to afford a drug that when the patent was sold for $1 because the doctor said, I don't want anyone to make money off of this drug that people need to survive. So if you're a Vermonter, hopefully it will get passed the House. We passed it unanimously in the Senate on Friday. You will not pay more than $100 each month for your insulin, regardless of how many drugs that you need, regardless of how many injections that you need. You will be capped at $100. And we understand that it might mean that there is some cost shifting somewhere else among insurance companies, but we cannot allow our most vulnerable Vermonters to pay over $1,600 a month just to stay alive. So that's one of the bills that I'm most proud of this session, and I hope Sarah will take a good look at it in the House and get it through. The other thing that I'm keenly aware of is the amount of student debt that so many families are carrying. And I sponsored a bill that will regulate student loan servicers. We found out that many of our student loan services are taking advantage of borrowers by putting them in higher payment plans. And it's costing American borrowers millions, and in some cases, depending on the loan, billions of dollars a year in additional interest. So again, pass the Senate unanimously. We'll send it off to the House and hopefully have a similar result there. I want to close by saying I am so lucky to have the job that I do. I love people. I love policy. I'm one of only 30 people in the state of Vermont that get to sit in those seats in the Senate. And I am so grateful that I have the opportunity to represent you. The last thing I want to say is, a couple years ago, when I turned 50, I did something that I always wanted to do, and that was buy a motorcycle. And my favorite back roads are the back roads of Vernon, and Sarah hears about it all the time. So thank you very much for having us here tonight, and I look forward to chatting with you in the hallway if you want to step out of the meeting. And thanks, Tim, for giving us time.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Becca. Couple of notes. The Vernon PTC is in the back of the room selling refreshments by donation. And there's also plenty of literature here, including literature about an upcoming benefit spaghetti supper to benefit one of our own, Kelly Wunsch. So please read on and support your neighbors. Time now to go to the Vernon School Board. In fact, I'll read the warning as it stands. Article 1 is to elect officers of the town by Australian ballot tomorrow from 7 to 7. Article 2 is to elect all town school district officers by law by Australian ballot. And Article 3 is the Vernon school budget to be done by Australian ballot as well. You can find the budget on page 51 and 52. And with that, we'd like to introduce the chair of the Vernon School Board, Carrie Emadon. Please hold the microphone up close. Make sure that they can hear you, because I know you speak so softly.
Have we met before?
Plenty.
All right, thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. Can I actually just take this off? This might be easier. Tell me if I rip the tablecloth. Okay, so introductions. As Tim said, I'm Carrie Amadon. I am the chair. We also have Sandy Morrison, who is our vice chair. And then we have Hannah Rosinski and Chad Mulverhill. Walter Bro, who is our clerk, was unfortunately detained at work and could not make it this evening. From the central office, we have Lyle Holliday, our superintendent, Frank Rucker, our business administrator. They are my phone-a-friends. as well as Mary Ross, our principal. So a few updates before we get into the money matters. Act 46, this is the question I get asked constantly. Where are we? Vernon remains its own district. Brattleboro, Dummerston, Putney, and Guilford have merged into a new district. So they are now known as the Wyndham Southeast School District. Both Vernon and this new school district are still under the Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union. So the way this looks, you've got the Supervisory Union as the umbrella organization, and then you've got the new merged district. Again, that's the former Brattleboro, Putney, Dummerston, and Guilford. And then Vernon is here. You still have a local school board. We still have budgetary authority for our building. And we still have school choice for our 7th through 12th graders. Also on the horizon, we talked about this last year at the end, I believe, is Act 173. So this is a special education formula change as to how they will reimburse. Instead of it being a reimbursement-based system, it's going to go to a census block system. So we're keeping an eye on how this might impact us. We are also in the midst of a superintendent search. Lyle has announced her retirement as of July 1st. I believe Martin put this in this week's Facebook page. We are looking for community members, parent, taxpayer, doesn't matter, to serve on some of our search committees. The time commitment is probably about a half day here, maybe a full day somewhere. If it's something you might be interested in, you can either see me tonight or check out the Facebook page, and there's an email address of someone at the central office that you can email your desire to possibly serve. So thank you if there is anyone interested. So how do we plan your budget? We start by looking at the needs of our 300 plus children and then trying to balance it with the affordability issue for our taxpayers. It is a collaboration between our principal, our central office, our staff, and the board. And we're trying to keep an eye out for those future legislative endeavors that might come down the path. We are looking at every single line item by line item, to see if there is anywhere that we can trim. So what you're voting on, this is language that every school district in the state has to use. So it's a lot of words, and I'm not going to read them all, but I do want to get across to you 3 numbers. So the warning article reads blah, blah, blah. $6,353,800. Blah, blah, blah. $17,178 per equalized pupil. Blah, blah. 5.8% higher. So this is the slide you all hate, but we're going to do it. Okay. This is page 52 of your town report. I just want to give you a sense of how we get to your tax rate. So this line, line 7, is that $6,353,800. That is our total education spending in Vernon, K through 12. Line 16 is where you see the equalized per pupil cost. Again, that's the $17,178, and that is up 5.8%. How those 2 numbers then translate to your tax rate is because of 3 other numbers that we do not control. So the first is the property dollar equivalent yield. That is a number set by the legislature. Then we have the equalized pupil number. Now, equalized pupils are not the number of kids who are sitting in seats in our schools. It's not the number of names on a list of all of our children. It is that number sent up to the state, and then they use weighting formulas to send us a number back. So certain types of demographics get different weights. If you're a child living in poverty, you might count for more. If you're a preschooler, you count for less. High school is more than elementary school. So all of those factors are taken in, and someone at the Agency of Education sends us back a number. And that's how we come up with the number of equalized pupils. The final number is the common level of appraisal. So that is done, I believe, by the tax department. It's another state agency who is looking at our assessed value and then looking at all of the homes that have sold in the previous year to see how close they are selling to assessed value. So we take these three numbers and they impact our tax rate. Two things worked in our favor this year. The property dollar equivalent went up, and up is good. The equalized student number stayed stable. Up is better, down is bad, we'll take stable. And then the CLA, the common level of appraisal, it came down a little bit. So it's a good thing in that our houses are selling close to their assessed value. But when you're doing this math, this does impact our taxes on the negative side. So this is how the money is spent in our building. So this is our K through 6 part of the budget. We wanted to give you guys sort of a visual as to where does the money go. So most of it is going to direct instruction. So that's teachers in front of kids in classrooms. Then we've got some student support. So that is our nurse and our guidance counselor. We've got staff support, administration, the central office. So the people here tonight, we pay an assessment based on the number of kids. It's a very fair-based way to account for our services that we use from the central office. We've got operation and maintenance in the building. We've got transportation, so those are our buses. And then we've got food services. So where are the increases? The tuition that we pay for our 7th through 12th grade students has gone up. Our health insurance is up. And our salaries are up about 3.7%. If you look at the budget, you will see that our K through 6 costs are down. They are actually down slightly. So the next area where we have a bit of a problem is that special education costs are increasing by 89% over last year. So it's $327,000. Now, overall, special ed costs are increasing. There is not a district in this state who is not going to see an increase. For us, it is due more because we pulled out of the merger. So we are no longer part of BUHS number 6, which also now does not exist because they have merged. But we are not part of that merger, and therefore we are now paying the full costs of our education for students. Hannah's got a good, can I pass Hannah? Do you want to give your analogy? Hannah's the queen of our analogies, and you can pick either one.
Wasn't planning on speaking tonight. Haha, sure. Yeah, I would say that in trying to think about how to, what this translates to, we can all relate to a buffet, for example. I think this is something that everyone can appreciate. I love food, so it works for me. When you're going up to a buffet and you're deciding whether or not you're going to choose something for breakfast, you can choose to opt into the buffet and split the costs and eat as much as you want and indulge in all of the food there, or you can pay a la carte. Essentially, what we're doing here is paying a la carte for what we're receiving. So for all the special ed costs, we're paying for every aspect of that, which has an allocated cost associated. So rather than getting the buffet, which is split among all the other consumers, we're paying specifically our portion.
Thank you. That was a good analogy. So is there anything we could do as a board to help lessen the impact? We came up with two things that we thought were quite helpful. First, we chose not to add to our capital fund this year. Normally, we put in a $50,000 line item to go towards our capital. But we feel like we are in a good position with where our fund is, and for 1 year, we cannot do this. Secondly, we chose to increase the amount of our general fund reserve that we put into the budget. Normally, or for the past 2 years, we have used a figure of $150,000. So this year, we're going to put in an additional $120,000. So the way this is going to look on your taxes now this is the school side of your taxes. Excuse me. If your house is valued at $100,000, you're going to see a $98 increase over last year's tax rate. This is the high level. So this is what the 30% of people in town who pay based on their assessed value will pay. 70% of people in Vernon, and in all, basically the average in Vermont is 70%. You don't pay on your assessed value, you pay based on income. So you're paying less than. For a $200,000 house, the increase is going to be $195. So that's where we are. Voting is tomorrow. If you have any questions about voting, see Tim here tonight. If you have any questions, you can ask any one of us. And anytime during the year, feel free to contact us. And all of our contact information is on the WSESU website, but probably the easier way to go is just call Tim, and he'll get you in touch with any of us.
Thanks.
But as you might notice, there are only 4 names here. And that is because one of us is leaving, and that would be Sandy. So this is Sandy's last town meeting with us. So Sandy has been nothing but polite and nothing but professional and always persistent. She keeps her cool at all of our meetings, but she doesn't let anybody get away with anything. So she is the perfect balance of a force to be reckoned with, as well as a pleasure to serve with. So we would like to thank Sandy for her years of service.
I just want to say it's been a privilege and an honor to be able to serve on the school board. I was on the board back in the early 1980s, and there have been a lot of changes, but I really felt...
Can you move the bag?
I felt called to come back and serve again, and I'm so glad that I could, and I've loved working with other members of the community that I wouldn't have known otherwise, and so thank you for the opportunity.
So are there any questions that we can answer?
Questions for the school board, please come to the center mic if you would like to be recognized. I guess not. You got off easy.
Well, we're here all night, so if you do think of something, track one of us down. Especially Sandy, because this is her last chance. Thank you.
Thank you to the school board. We're taking a short recess to allow the select board to set up on the platform. Please take your seats. Town meeting is back in order. We move now, before we consider Article number 4, we'd like to introduce the Chair of the Vernon Select Board, Mrs. Sandy Harris, to introduce the board and the interim town administrator.
To my left is Jean Carr, Chris Parker, Jeff Dunkley, and Tom Garino is our interim town administrator who has been unbelievably helpful.
Thank you.
And we thank all of you for coming tonight.
All right, with that in mind, we will go to Article number 4. Shall the voters of the Vernon Town School District authorize the school board to expend... Oh, wait a minute, that's the Article 3. Hello, Article 4. Article 4, shall the voters authorize the total general fund expenditure for operating expenditures of $1,894,285, of which $1,608,585 will be raised by taxes, and $285,700 to be raised by estimated income. You'll find the budget on pages 23 through 28 of your town report. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Mr. Parker.
I move that the voters authorize the total fund expenditure for operating expense of $1,894,285, of which $1,608,585 shall be raised by taxes and $285,700 by estimated income. Mr. Moderator, I also ask that you allow the presentation of the PowerPoint.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that the voters authorize total fund expenditure for operating expenses of $1,894,285, of which $1,608,585 shall be raised by taxes, and $285,700 by estimated income. Does the board wish to speak to its motion with the PowerPoint? Mrs. Harris,
Yes.
go for it.
Mr. Garino is going to do the PowerPoint.
Chair recognizes Mr. Garino, who, by the way, is a Vernon resident, so he is allowed to speak without worry of whether or not he is.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tom Garino. I am acting as the interim town administrator for the town of Vernon. I have lived up on Tyler Hill for about 21 years now. It'll be 21 years this May. I want to walk through a little bit of what I've acknowledged and encountered over the past few weeks here, and it's been a very positive experience, both for me and I hope for the select board, as I try to help the town out as they start moving toward a replacement for a full-time administrator. So what I have seen this year, in my time here, in my discussion with the board, is the board is delivering on what the town's people have asked it to do. It's presenting to you tonight a very frugal FY 2021 budget. It's continuing to update and refine its policies, both internal and external. It's listening to the professional staff. I think there needs to be a lot more communication between the professional staff and the board, and they're working really hard to make sure that communication channel is opened. They're focused on economic development, and that is working with the Friends and all of the things that the Friends are doing for the Downtown Village District and the Planning Board as well. They are requiring from each of the departments and every employee fiscal accountability on how they spend the money. They are very dedicated to be sure that the money that you provide for us to run this community is being spent appropriately and judiciously. They act promptly on citizen concerns. They expect staff to act promptly on citizen concerns. And if we don't know the answer, to try to find the answer. And they've dealt with some, complicated things over the last several months and some curveballs. And they are now in the process, once the board reconfigures itself tomorrow, they'll be setting a new set of priorities for the board to work on for the next year. So what's new? They're following through with the Vermont Council on Rural Development recommendations, including the trail improvements and mapping of the town forest, the broadband exploration through the Wyndham Regional Commission with Mr. Hicks, and I am going to just not pronounce this name correctly.
Zlothover.
Thank you. Just to remind you, please fill out the survey. They're working with the Friends of the Vernon Center have acquired their not-for-profit status, which is really important, and are poised to capitalize on the tremendous work for the plan of a village center in Vernon. They've acquired ownership of the Governor Hunt House, and the Friends are now researching the best utilization of that piece of property. And the board is working with the Planning Commission to engage the students at Antioch College to determine the development potential of the former VY property. So with a lot of changes, opportunities present themselves as well. There's been some internal changes that everybody's aware of. There's been the resignation of the town administrator. There was a recent departure, of a select board member. They've hired me. They're preparing for the recruitment of a permanent replacement town administrator. They have updated and clarified the travel reimbursement policy, which I understand had caused some consternation recently. And they are committed to reviewing all of the other policies within their book. One of the select board members told me today that is going to be a priority moving forward. Opportunities are to build new teams of leadership with the advent of a new administrator and redefine through the board expectations for that role. They're going to further promote cross-communication within town departments and agencies where it's appropriate. And they plan to discuss and try to come up with new ways to disseminate information to the citizens of Vernon. I've been there 15 years. It just kind of comes out naturally. My apologies. So any select board and administration in a town has things that it needs to balance. We need to balance the municipal needs, the running of the operation, with the citizens' ability to pay. And that's where the board's frugality and checking every bill is very important. We need to continue to try to create efficiencies. This is a pretty slim operation. There aren't a lot of people in a lot of departments, so I think there are a lot of efficiencies, and people are doing a lot of work crossing over departments and helping each other out. We certainly always have to adhere to the increasing level of state and federal requirements, and they are not getting less as time goes on. They are getting to be more and more. And it's my job, or whoever the replacement for the town administrator is, to implement the goals and policies of the elected leaders. So moving right to the budget, the general fund budget shows an overall increase of about 1.83%. The town is meeting all of its financial policy requirements. The town clerk's budget, because there is a slight increase in that, represents 3 elections this year. This is a presidential election year. There are primaries, so there are more elections. Health insurance costs are budgeted at an approximate increase of 5.25%. That's what I gleaned from going through the budget, and that's where it seems to come down. The select board budget depicts $15,000 to undertake a capital needs assessment, which will be looking at all of your capital assets and seeing what the long-term life is and what expectations for repairs you will probably need to start funding or putting money aside for as time goes on. The town van budget is down slightly. The fire department is level funded. The town garage operations is reduced slightly, and road equipment repair and maintenance, which is important, as you know, is level funded. And the estimated revenue this year is down, it's estimated to be down about 2.72%. The free library, which is Article 5 in your handbook tonight, is raised less than 1% over the current fiscal year, or $598. The Vernon capital expenditure budget is at $252,923. And when you get through with all of the funds that you have so smartly put away over the years, only $60,482 is to be raised. And that is on page 16 of your handbook. And the CUSIC scholarship has not been funded for several years. But the money has been paid based on the guidelines. The town is likely only to have about $7,000 in the account next year. And there will be a question on how the town wants to proceed with that. And that will be Article 30 in your handbook. These are what we see as our estimated revenues for the ensuing year. And if there are questions on this later, I'm sure the select board will be able to provide you some guidance on that as well. And I'm going to skip down here a little bit. I'm just going to run through this quickly because I put it in the wrong order, and I apologize. And we'll come back to that when we get to Article 5. And we'll come to the general budget of the town. And I will turn this over to the chair.
Okay, we would ask that questions on the budget come up. We want to do this like we have in the past years, go department by department. So first department is the town clerk's office. Questions on the town clerk's budget? Again, this is page 23 of your town report. Page 23. Any questions on the town clerk's budget? Going once, going twice, sold. Next, go to the town treasurer's budget, just underneath the town clerk's budget. Any questions on the treasurer's proposed budget? Seeing none, let's go to the listers. Any questions on the lister's budget? Oh, I'm sorry. Lister's office budget. Any questions there? Seeing none, scroll down, Tom. Go to the select board budget. Any questions on the select board proposed budget? Seeing none, we'll go to general expenses. Any questions on the general expense portion of the budget? Seeing none, let's go to planning. Questions on the planning portion of the budget? Please go to the microphone in the center. Microphone in the center, yes, all the way over there. And please state your name and go ahead. I think that needs to be turned on. Ian's going to help you with it.
Got it. Deb Barrier. And now I don't have my paper in front of me, but there was a grant? Let me look at yours. Planning. Oh, yeah. So I was wondering what the matching grant was. If someone on the planning commission could speak to that?
The select board or the planning commission is interrogated if they so wish.
Bob Spencer?
Bob Spencer is recognized for the purposes of answering the question. And
I don't recall what this...
second microphone, please use the microphone,
Hi,
Bob.
sorry. Pardon? Okay, yes. We received a Vermont municipal planning grant, also to work on the Vermont Yankee site redevelopment. And the local share of that grant is $6,000. It's a formula the state provides.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions on the planning portion of the budget? Seeing none, we'll go to the Recreation Department budget. Any questions on the Recreation budget? No questions there. Let's go to the Buildings and Grounds portion of the budget. Questions on building and grounds? Okay, please come to the microphone over here, if you would, please.
Make it difficult for a guy my size.
And we all need the exercise, don't worry.
Mark Parker. Question, who is doing groundskeeping now?
The board
I
is
know at one
interrogating.
time it was hired out, so I'm just curious, who's doing it now?
Select board is queried.
Turner and Renard.
Turner Renard. Is that a, was
Local?
that contracted?
Yes.
And bids sent out?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on building and grounds? We'll move on to cemeteries. Questions on cemeteries? Questions on the seniors? Questions on the seniors? No questions on the seniors. Town van. Questions on the town van? Questions on the historians?
Tim?
Yes. Okay, I had a problem seeing you back there. Please come to the microphone. This is a question for the historians. And please state your name when you get to the microphone.
Mary Lynn Sherlin. There's two items under historians. One says grounds and one says lawn care. I was just wondering if they could clarify what the difference in those two items are.
The select board and the historians are queried.
I believe part of that is the part that goes to offset the cemetery caretaker. I believe that's why it's separate. Is that true, Cindy?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Use a microphone, Cindy. Mrs. Turnley.
Cindy Turnley, treasurer. The lawn care is the mowing of the lawns. The grounds is the planting around and that kind of stuff.
Okay, because to me they sound like the same thing, so one's a lot more.
Thank you. Any further questions on the historians? Seeing none, questions on contracted public safety. Questions on contracted public safety. Seeing none, fire department. Questions on fire department. Seeing no questions on the fire department, questions on other public safety. Questions on other public safety. No questions there. Highway maintenance. Questions on highway maintenance. No questions there. Town garage operation. Questions on town garage operation. No questions there. Road equipment repair and maintenance. Questions on road equipment repair and maintenance. No questions there. So, we've gone through the total budget. Are you ready for the question? Again, the motion is that the voters authorize the total fund expenditure for operating expenses of $1,894,285, of which $1,608,585 shall be raised by taxes and $285,700 by estimated income. All those in favor of Article 4, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You passed Article 4. Article 5, shall the voters appropriate a total library fund expenditure of $87,453 to be raised by taxes for administration of the Vernon Free Library. And you can find that budget on page 31 of your town report. Ms. Lockever, you are recognized for purposes of making a motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I move a total library fund expenditure of $87,453 to be raised by taxes for administration of the Vernon Free Library.
Do we have a second? Second. Moved and seconded that the total library fund expenditure of $87,453 be raised by taxes for administration of the Vernon Free Library. Ms. Lockever, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, briefly. The Vernon Free Library is one of Vernon's community centers, along with the school and the rec department, and it is more than books, shelves, and computers. It is a gathering place of knowledge, interests, and experiences for everyone to share. In yesterday's Boston Sunday Globe, an article on libraries called Much More Than Books talked about the evolving role of libraries in the 21st century. And I quote, "In a time when information, commerce, and socialization are becoming increasingly impersonal online, libraries provide physical spaces for people to come together and share what they are learning and experiencing." Unquote. Here in Vernon, my favorite offerings in our library include the weekly cribbage games on Wednesdays, the monthly coffees with our state rep, Sarah Coffey, when the legislature is in session, the interlibrary loan program, and the new mystery books that come in every month, and the DVD collection. I think I've watched Mrs. Doubtfire and Calendar Girls at least 3 times each, and there's a few others. Other folks like the weekly coloring group and the knitting group, the audio book collection, and the occasional floral arrangement workshops. Our youngest residents enjoy the children's area with its new, easy-to-reach bookshelves and great selections of books, and the young adult book section is also very popular. On behalf of the library trustees, I would like to say that thanks to the support of voters at last year's town meeting, the library, under the able leadership of Jean Carr, our library director, has been able to maintain a high level of programs and services this year. With your continued support, we are confident that the library will go on meeting the needs of our community. At this time, Mr. Moderator, I wish to give the mic to Jean Carr, our library director, for a PowerPoint presentation about the library and to answer any questions folks may have.
Ms. Carr is recognized for purposes of a PowerPoint presentation.
Yep. Go. Is it on? Yep. Okay. So in the library, we have a collection of over 19,000 items, and there is unlimited interlibrary loans available. Our circulation last year was 11,409 items, and we interlibrary loaned 240 items. We have 854 cardholders utilizing materials, an increase of 60 borrowers over last year, and there were 5,933 visits to the library. We did 180 programs, some meeting weekly, with 925 attendees. And Brana addressed some of those programs that are ongoing that we do. And other services available are museum, state park, and historic site passes, and the retreat farm pass. As I said, we do interlibrary loans. We have an ongoing book sale. There's computers and printing accessible to anyone. We print tax forms as people need them. We have free high-speed fiber optic Wi-Fi, and it's available throughout the town office building. We do scanning and faxing. We have special events. We do Netflix for our patrons, and Universal Class through the Vermont Department of Libraries is available to patrons. We cater to both the electronic and traditional readership. We have Listen Up Vermont available to the patrons. There were 5,600 downloadable audiobooks available to our patrons and 10,191 ebooks. The Vernon Free Library patrons use the service 1,292 times. Sorry. That's okay. We also have access to 51 databases through Vermont Online Library. That includes all kinds of articles, periodicals, just about any kind of information you'd want to look up. And the Vermont Online Library was utilized 524 times by our patrons last year. And Universal Class is available for patrons through the Vermont Department of Libraries, and that's certificate level classes available in hundreds of different categories. And we subscribe to Consumer Report Online, and that's available. So the library, the budget we're proposing, the $87,453, would cost each household $27.20 per 100,000 of their assessed property value. The nearest library would charge non-residents $62 a year and $5 for each additional household member. And an Audible download service could cost about $15 a month to do it yourself. Okay, this is a repeat, I think. Yep, this is a repeat. So if you were to use your library, what is it worth? Over a period of a month, if you were to borrow 4 books, 2 movies, 2 audiobooks, use a museum pass, request an interlibrary loan, the value of all those services is approximately $322. And this is our budget. The only line that increased this year was mostly our medical insurance, which has gone up for everybody. Any questions?
Questions on Article number 5? Please be recognized by the moderator. Any questions on Article number 5? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? Again, the question is that the voters appropriate a total library fund expenditure of $87,453 to be raised by taxes for administration of the Vernon Free Library. All those in favor of Article 5 as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. We passed Article 5. Article 6, to elect a library trustee to fill the unexpired term of 1 year through town meeting of March of 2021. We have a motion.
Kristen Dietrich. Mr. Moderator, I would like to nominate Ian Heffley to fill the unexpired term of 1 year through town meeting of March of 2020.
Do we have a second? Okay. Any other nominations on this particular question?
Oh, sorry. It should be 2021.
2021.
Sorry, not 2020.
2021. All right. Any questions on the article? Seeing none, all those in favor of Ian Heffley as a library trustee to fill the unexpired term of 1 year through town meeting March of 2021, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You have approve Ian Heffley as a library trustee. Article 7, to elect a library trustee to fill the unexpired term of 3 years through March of 2022. Is there a motion on the floor?
Joanne Lovely. I'd like to nominate Elaine Dietrich to fill the unexpired term of 2 years through town meeting of 2022.
Is there a second on the motion? Second. Moved and seconded that Elaine Dietrich be nominated as library trustee to fill the unexpired term through town meeting of March 2022. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Elaine Dietrich to fill the library trustee position. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You have passed Article 7. Article 8, to elect a library trustee to fill the term of 3 years through March of 2023. Is there a motion?
Yes, Elaine Dietrich, Mr. Moderator. I'd like to nominate Joanne Levely to fill the term of 3 years through town meeting of March 2023.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded that Joanne Levely be elected as library trustee to fill the term of 3 years through March of 2023. Any discussion on the article? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 8 as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You have passed Article 8. Article 9, to elect the Marsh Fund Committee. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Mrs. Carr.
I nominate James Brown and Sandra Harris as the Marsh Fund Committee.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded that James Brown and Sandra Harris be nominated as the Marsh Fund Committee. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor of the article as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You passed Article 9. Article 10, to elect a Memorial Day Committee. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator,
Ms. Carr.
I nominate Peter and Angela Miller as Memorial Day Committee.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded, Peter and Angela Miller be elected as the Memorial Day Committee. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You passed Article 10. Article number 11. Shall the voters appropriate $252,923 for the funding of items approved in the capital plan, of which $60,842 will be raised by taxes. Is there a motion on the floor? You need to come to a microphone if you could, please. In fact, Ian's bringing you one. And if you do have limited mobility, please raise your hand. We'll make sure that the other microphone gets to you.
Thank you. I am on the capital plan
You need
committee.
to make a motion.
Oh, my motion, sorry. The motion is, shall the voters appropriate $252,923 for the funding of the items approved in the capital plan, of which $60,842 is to be raised by taxes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that the voters appropriate $252,923 for funding of items in the capital plan, of which $60,842 will be raised by taxes. Mrs. Staropinski, do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes. The capital plan is on page 16. And if you'll take a look at that, you'll see all the departments, their expenses are listed as we have done in the past. And over on the right-hand side, in the darker color, you will see the money that each of the departments returned to the budget that they did not expend. And so if you go down to the bottom of the budget, you'll notice the returned excess funds are $70,501. So that significantly reduced the $252,923 that we needed to raise. The figure above that is interest and gains. That comes from the money that's invested and is returned to us through the money that's made in the stock market investments. That's quite considerable this year because the stock market was up. The funds to be appropriated are reduced, now down to $135,895. And I want to really point out and thank the citizens for following the emergency capital fund plan. Because in the emergency capital fund reserve, any monies borrowed from it needs to be returned, and it is being returned, which allows the investment to return to the citizens $75,053, which has significantly reduced it down to $60,842 to be appropriated by taxes. Are there any questions on any of the articles that are on the capital plan?
Questions on the capital plan? Questions on Article 11? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 11, that the voters appropriate $252,923 for the funding of items of the capital plan, of which $60,842 will be raised by taxes. All those in favor of Article 11 as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You passed Article 11. Now we come to Article number 12. Shall the town continue to provide curbside trash collection, pay as you throw? Is there a motion on the floor?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Parker.
I move that the town continue to provide curbside trash collection known as pay as you throw.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded, the town continue to provide curbside trash collection known as pay as you throw. Mr. Parker, do you wish to speak to your motion?
I do, Mr. Moderator. This is a program that we've struggled with. There's some legalities with it that if we run it in the negative, we are illegal, the way that the state has this set up. I am going to point at Mr. Spencer, as he knows considerably more about this than I do. And that's really where this came from. This program is in trouble. There is not a lot of use of it, which is just causing prices go up, the lack of use, it's creating a lot of issues that is not evening out anywhere. So that is why this has been brought up on whether we want to continue this or not.
Further questions, comments on Article number 12? Back of the room, please come to a microphone. And state your name when you begin speaking.
Heather Frost. As a community, we would save money if we all participated in pay as you throw. Doing it individually, you're going to pay more. But we need the participation. And we need to realize that you're not paying for a bag, you're paying for a service.
Further discussion on Article number 12, gentlemen over on the far side of the room. Please state your name.
Jeff Kosis. Some of us in this town already have a dumpster that do our own trash, so we don't have to walk out with those puny bags. They don't hold anything. They're darn expensive, and I don't feel like having to pay twice because if somebody wants, and Frank, when you go to Triple T Trucking, they tell you the recycling, they don't make any money on it. We're paying for someone else. We do all the recycling, all that. It's a program that needs to go away. We don't need to have out, every Thursday or Wednesday, or it just needs to go away. I don't need to pay twice for my rubbish. I already have it taken care of, so thank you.
Further discussion on Article number 12, woman at the front of the room. Then we'll get to you after her. fact, if you want to walk over to the microphone while she's speaking, that'd be good.
Deb Barrier, I know this has been a problem. I've heard from some older folks in the community that if we got rid of pay-as-you-throw, they would have a really hard time getting their trash to where it needs to go. And then I've heard from the dumpster people. And honestly, whatever people are doing to rent a dumpster, that's got to be costing more than if you're recycling and spending, Tim, help me out here on the price, $3 a bag?
Actually, I am not allowed to.
Oh, you're not allowed to, sorry. It's three or $3.50 or something a bag. In our household, we use probably at the most 2 bags a month, and we just do a heck of a lot of recycling. So $7 a month for bag, we can't get it any cheaper. I just want to say that.
Chair would recognize Mr. Gilligan, and then come on up after he finishes speaking.
Patrick Gilligan. I believe the pay-as-you-throw program is a great benefit to the town of Vernon. It's also done fairly cheaply. If we had Lake Casella doing this, it would probably cost us double to dispose of this recycling. Norm Mallory's my grandfather. I work at Triple T, and he gave the town of Vernon a very good rate to do this, and I hope we all vote yes on this.
Further discussion on the article? You're up.
Thank you.
Munson Hicks. Just wanted to see if my figuring is right, because I took the number of 148,000, which was the quote from Triple T, divided it by the approximate 800 houses that we have in town, which comes out to cost each median town owner $185 a year. And then if we use 1 bag a week, that's $5 a bag, that's $260. So the basic cost would be $445 a year, partially done by taxes and partially done out of your pocket. The second thing I did was I called a friend who lives in Guilford, and they have they pay for their service at $40 a month every other week. 1 week is trash, the other week is recycling. So that comes out to $480 a month. So it's actually cheaper here, and it's funded by using your taxes. The questions I don't have answers to, and I'm curious about, is how much of the municipal trash will be covered, the basic stuff that the town creates, how much of the school trash is covered, if anything, and how is that paid for, if not? And finally, to clarify, this is only for homeowners. This isn't for businesses. Businesses do indeed need to have their own pickup, and if businesses are cheating, or if that's a little bit. If you have a little business in your home, it's hard to divide it up. But unless my numbers are wrong, it's cheaper, and it's going to stay cheaper because the Guilford ones go up every month as well. Plus, it's easier. You're going to have to, drive into Brattleboro to drop your stuff off. If you don't have a truck, what are you going to do? I say we keep it.
The board is interrogated. There was a couple of questions in there, so if you wish to answer those questions, we'll do that first. Mr. Parker.
I will do my best to answer these, and Bob, please jump up if need be. The recycling is covered with the money raised by taxes. The pay-as-you-throw is not. The pay-as-you-throw has to pay for itself. So if we're not participating in that, then the cost goes up, which the price of the bags will be going up very soon. The numbers do not work out now. I think that we have put it off as long as we can to see how things played out here, but the end result is that your bag prices will be going up, and that has a lot to do with the lack of participation, the fact that that program has to cover all of the fees that Triple T has, and yes, Triple T has given us a great price on that. But that still doesn't change that if we're not bringing the money in to pay for those bags, to pay for your trash, then it's not working out that way. So
Further discussion on the motion? The gentleman walking up to the microphone.
Andrew Gant. I've heard a lot of people mention about how cheap pay-as-you-throw is, and I am sure for our older families in town it may be, but as a father of a family of 3 kids and a wife, once you have a handful of diapers in those bags, they break as you go down the driveway. We currently are contracted through Franklin and Sons to have ours. We're allowed to have up to 6 bags a week, and it's costing us a fraction of what the pay-as-you-throw will. So I say it needs to go.
Further discussion on Article number 12. Over here, Ian will bring a microphone over, and you'll be after her. Okay?
Hi. I know diapers are heavy because I now have a great-grandson. So anyway, between the diapers for the children and the diapers for the elderly and all the little other pads in between, those things are recyclable and can be put in the cow bin.
No, they're not.
That's what the material came through that said, as can cat litter, which is also very heavy because I've got a cat. So there are ways that you can get around that and not have to buy so many bags. We use 1 bag every 2 weeks because I compost and I bring things to the cow bin, and I have thankfully a yard that I can bring my yard waste to and compost there. So I am able to drive and bring my bags if I have to Triple T or down to Wyndham Solid Waste at the other end of Brattleboro, but there are many people who can't. And I'm getting to the point where I can't lift up as much as I used to, but I can still do it. So that's something that you need to consider also.
Further discussion on Article 12. Gentleman in the center of the room.
Mark Parker. I guess I'm kind of a unique individual because my wife and I, we use 1 green bag every 3 months. And a big part of that is we don't throw, one of the things is we don't throw garbage in our trash can. We put that in a bag, we keep it in the freezer, and then once a week I take it down to the cow. When we had cats, I used to take the cat litter. There's a lot of different ways. We recycle. We do as much as we possibly can. I can put 3 13-gallon trash bags in one of those green bags. Yes, at times they do not hold up as well, but 90% of the time, I have no problems with them. It's a big expense for this town, and I agree, but we have to be more diligent upon what we put in the trash. Now, granted, diapers, the plastic diapers, Pampers and things like that, the plastic is not recyclable. And when my kids were growing up, we used real diapers. We didn't use Pampers, but old school. But in a way, I guess if we were still having kids and we were still with our grandkids and we were using the diapers, we pull them apart, separate the plastic. The rest of it can go into the cow. Now, you may think that's kind of gross, but you know what? They make plastic gloves. But there's ways of doing it to do more so that we don't have to pay as much. But it just takes a little work, a little time. But if you put your mind to it, there's different ways of doing it. And, you know, my wife and I, we're just 2 people. And 1 bag every 3 months, it's not a problem for me.
Further discussion on Article 12. Gentlemen in the center of the room.
Ian Heffley. I am also a new parent of 2. Luckily, we only had about 6 months worth of diapers to deal with, but with a family of 4 and 2 dogs, which also have diapers now, unfortunately, we go through about 2 to 3 bags a month, if that. And I'm using it as a teaching moment because, after all, we do live in Vermont, and the rest of the country looks at us as those recycling hippies. So we have to live up to our reputation, and I use it for a teachable moment for the kids on what gets recycled, what can go to the cow bin, and then go to the cows and see them using it. So I hope we can keep this pay-as-you-throw program.
Further discussion on the article. Again, come to the microphone and state your name.
Don Rosinski. I just want to state the obvious. I don't know if everybody else has picked up on this, but the problem is we're not selling enough bags. Right. So the more you're able to reduce the number of bags you're using, the worse off we are. Am I right? Does that sound correct? I mean, it's just common sense. So I'll let Mr. Spencer see if it's any different, but that's what it sounds like to me.
Further discussion on the article? Please state your name.
Yeah. Bob Spencer. I'm a resident of town, but I'm also the executive director of Windham Solid Waste District, and I've been on the Solid Waste Committee for 10 years here in Vernon, as it's gone through quite a few different members. And now there are no members on it. But what I wanted to clarify on what Linda was saying about the adult diapers or baby diapers, they are not compostable. The material collected at the highway garage goes to Martin's Farm in Greenfield, and they are not permitted to take any human or waste like that. They do take pet waste though. So that's why it's somewhat confusing. So please don't bring your diapers to the cow dumpster. We also in Brattleboro at Windham Solid Waste compost and serve the town of Brattleboro's curbside program, which has food waste collection. If you live in Brattleboro, you put out your recyclables, but also you can put out your food scraps and soiled paper and cardboard and pizza boxes. Vernon actually is, and I'm not taking a position on this article, I just wanted to clarify what's acceptable. But I did want to respond to something Chris Parker said, and I've just really figured this out with the state. You can subsidize the pay-as-you-throw, the trash component with general tax revenue. They try to encourage towns, and they won't give you a really straight answer on this, but if you read the law, it's Act 148, Universal Recycling. There is no provision in there that pay-as-you-throw has to cover all of the trash. It's collection and disposal of trash. So Chris was right, it doesn't cover recycling. So Brattleboro, for instance, pays quite a bit out of tax base, as does the town of Westminster, the only other 2 towns with curbside trash and recycling in Windham County. So it still doesn't change what Don Rosinski was saying, and the more we recycle our little hearts out, the less revenue we generate. So I think it's true that over time, the town will be spending more and more on trash. The way this whole thing came up was that the town does not have a contract with Triple T for this service. And so the Solid Waste Committee said, you know, in the interest of our budgeting and knowing what our expenses will be, we should sign a contract and have a 3-year term with it. And so now, if the town approves this article, it would then go back to the select board to sign a contract with Triple T, locking in these rates for 3 years, and I believe there's a couple renewal years, and so it could be a 5-year deal. So if anyone has other questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them. So,
if there's no one else who wants to speak, Mr. Kosas will recognize you for a second time on this question.
Thank you. Is there a chance to opt out? If everyone who is in favor of this program, go ahead and do it, but those who have their own trash services, can we opt out and just do our own thing? Because I don't want to pay twice, and it seems like all these articles, all the taxes are going up, and my property taxes are climbing up pretty rapidly here. I'd like to not to pay twice for trash. Thank you.
Amen.
Further discussion on the article? Gentleman coming up, please state your name.
Jim Belleville. One thing everybody needs to keep in mind when you're complaining about the bags being too heavy, mandatory composting is coming to the state very shortly. That food waste, the heavy stuff that's in there now, won't be allowed. I don't know about the private haulers, but if you're doing it in the town bag, you're going to get it sent back, and you'll have to separate it out yourself again. So keep that in mind. I'd like to see it stay.
Gentleman coming up to the microphone, you're recognized.
Ryan Gilligan. So a big problem that I see, because I pick up your trash every Thursday, if you're wondering, is that there is a lot of people that only put out recycling, and they'll never put out a single trash bag. So is that really fair to all the people that are putting forward all the effort to go get the green bags, pay for it, and then you have people abusing the system and only putting out recycling? We was in a perfect world, paying for your trash bags would pay for the whole system, and none of it would fall back on the tax base.
Further discussion on the article? We have someone coming to the microphone now.
George Pond. Chris, I just wondered a couple questions. We've had Triple T for, I don't know, as long as I can never remember. Has the board or has the folks from the town ever put this out to bid to a separate contractor? And then am I correct in hearing that starting 1 July, the compost will be starting house to house also? Is that coming around? Okay.
Mr. Parker, you are queried if you so choose.
So yes, it has gone out. I believe, Bob, we sent it out to 3 different companies, 3 or 4, anyway.
10.
Okay. So 10. Triple T was still the cheapest. Again, your prices are going to go up. The gentleman that was just speaking about the trash and recycling, those are 2 separate things. So it's not being unfair one to the other. The recycling is covered by taxes, and pay-as-you-throw is supposed to be covered by the bags that nobody is buying. And so what, I'm sorry, the other question that you had was, I got sidetracked there. Oh, the composting, yes, and that one I am going to defer to Bob on. He knows much more about that.
Chair, we recognize Mr. Spencer.
Yes, Bob Spencer again. The state law, Act 148, was amended last session to not require residential curbside collection of food scraps. The original law did have that. Wherever there was curbside trash and recycling, they had to offer food scrap collection. The hauling industry objected strenuously to that and has a lot of clout in Montpelier, and they amended the law. So starting this July, it still is mandatory that all food scraps be recycled, fed to animals, reused in food banks, or composted. But there is there's no real enforcement of it. So it's really up to and there's no inspection going out, opening up bags. So it's a typical Vermont legislative decision, an unfunded mandate that sounded great and went through the legislature with no money to back it up. So that's why we're all dealing with it.
Further discussion on the article? I'm going to go to Mrs. Manning because she hasn't spoken yet. And then we'll go to Ms. Barrier and then Mr. Gant as time allows. So Mrs. Manning needs to speak first. She's not spoken yet on the article.
I would just like to mention that at our elementary school, if you notice the beautiful artwork, we teach our students to separate their plastic, their recyclables, their compost, And my hope, my sincere hope is that that's carried out within the homes of Vernon as well.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Ms. Barrier.
I just want to be 100% clear I know what I'm voting on. What I'm voting on with pay-as-you-throw is the green bags. Do we keep the green bags, raise the price of them to cover the cost of Triple T collecting them? And that's only that. There's recycling is completely separate. Or do we abandon it, in which case we're responsible for our own bags going up to Ferry Road?
The board is queried.
So yes, this article has absolutely zero to do with your recycling. And when we put these out to bid, we did make sure that that was broken down separately so that if we opted out of this, that recycling could still be picked up. If we wanted to do one or the other, we've looked at everything about this. We've looked at going, and I believe you guys had done it before, where it was bi-weekly things were picked up, and we've looked at that. We've looked at all of these prices to try and figure out what fits best. But as we're hearing, and we've been hearing it a lot, is that people with dumpsters, because they have bigger families, are going to be paying twice if we have to subsidize this. And that's why we're bringing this here, because we need to know what you guys want to do.
Chair will recognize Mr. Gant for a second time.
Just a couple quick questions or clarifications. We started pay-as-you-throw 3-4 years ago now. I'm curious, A, out of those years, have we had any year where it was actually profitable for us? And B, if we have a deficit in the bill because we're not buying enough bags, that money has to come from somewhere. So where does it come from? I would assume somewhere where our taxes are paying into. So even those of us who do have dumpsters are still paying for the bags in the end. It would seem to me it's been in place for the past couple years and has failed every year, and we want to keep the program. That doesn't make sense to me. Thank you.
The select board and the administration is queried. Mrs. Turnley?
Cindy Turnley, Town Treasurer. When we started this program, we started it before we had to start it. A year before we had to start it, and it was part of the solid waste fund. And it depleted, we bought all of our startup inventory, our bins and everything out of that fund. And we started to deplete that fund out, so they decided a couple years later to start a pay-as-you-throw fund, which was fine, but they never put any money in it. So what happened was we had to write off, we had to buy $6,500 worth of trash bags because we were running out. And we've been having trouble catching up ever since. Right now, as of the end of February, the fund is in the hole by $5,763. So it's right about the amount we would have paid for the inventory that we had to buy in order to keep the fund going. If we had had startup money, which we were told at the time we couldn't do, but now Mr. Spencer has told us that we could have done that, and we probably should have done that, and then we would be okay.
Further discussion on the article. Woman of the second row, please use the microphone.
Elizabeth Ellis. So, in order, like Cindy just said, we're pretty much at where we were when we started. That's my understanding. We started out, we put money into the bags, and here we are years later. We just haven't made up that money. Am I wrong about that? Or is that kind of, we just still need, if we could be level if we put in that money like we should have. So it seems like for the number of households in the town, it wouldn't be that much money to get us up level, and then whatever it costs to have the bags pay for themselves. Seems like we could do that. I'm not sure what we would, if we did that, it wouldn't be a huge amount of money compared to some of the other things in the budget. And I don't think people who aren't using the bags would be out a lot of money. That's just my thought. There's other things in the budget that people don't use. The school, some people don't use that. Some people don't use the library. Some people, but you know, we have to take care of our people and our older people. Again, it's something that's hard for them, and we don't want to lose people.
Further discussion on the motion? Young lady over here.
Kristen Dietrich, can we call the question?
Question is called. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. We cease debate. All those in favor of ceasing debate, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes apparently have it. We've ceased debate. Again, the question, Article 12, that the town continue to provide curbside trash collection, also known as pay-as-you-throw. All those in favor of Article 12, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You passed Article 12. Article 13. Article 13 is, shall the voters authorize the town to dissolve the pay-as-you-throw fund and cover negative expenditures from the solid waste fund up to $8,000. Chair would recognize Mr. Parker.
Mr. Moderator, I move we pass over Article 13.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded that we pass over Article 13. That would be objecting to consideration of the article, which means it's non-debatable and requires a 2/3. All those in favor of the motion to pass over Article 13, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You've officially passed over Article 13. Article 14, shall the town continue curbside recycling? Chair recognizes Mr. Parker.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town continue curbside recycling.
I heard a second over there. Moved and seconded that the town continue curbside recycling. Mr. Parker, do you wish to speak to your motion?
I do not.
Brevity is indeed the soul of wit. Discussion on Article 14. Mr. Spencer.
This is something that's clear about the Act 148. If you have curbside trash, you must have curbside recycling. So that's what the article's asking.
So, Mr. Chair, Mr. Moderator?
Mrs. Harris.
I move we pass over.
I want a ruling from the town attorney on that, the effect of either approving this article or passing over the article. And please use the microphone, Larry. Town Attorney Larry Slayson from Salmon and Nostrand.
Well, I haven't been asked to research this article, but I don't see any harm in having the electorate vote on this question. It's what we're being told is that it's required if you have the recycling, if you have the curbside pickup, that the recycling is also required under Act 148. I don't know that to be the case, but why don't we still have the voters vote on this article at this point, Mr. Moderator? I don't see any harm in doing that, and then if there's a contrary vote, we can sort that out.
When I was a young moderator, I told the then town attorney, if I ask for your advice, I'm bound to take it, because we're paying you. So we're going to continue on with debate on Article number 14. Any further comments or questions on the article? Mr. Gant, please come to the microphone.
Call the question.
Oh, okay, moved and seconded that we cease debate. All those in favor of ceasing debate, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You've ceased debate, and the recurring question is that the town continue curbside recycling. All those in favor of the article, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You've passed Article 14. Article 15, shall the voters appropriate $108,000 for municipal building refuse, curbside recycling and compost recycling to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established solid waste fund. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. Parker.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the voters appropriate $108,000 for municipal building refuse, curbside recycling, compost recycling to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established solid waste fund.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that the voters appropriate $108,000 for municipal building refuse, curbside recycling, and compost recycling to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established solid waste fund. Mr. Parker, do you wish to speak to your question?
I do not, sir.
Discussion on Article 15. Ms. Barrier? No.
Okay, so because now we've passed everything else, we need the $108,000 to pay for it. Will this also include paying for the deficit in the current bag fund? What is, and it obviously wasn't included in your select board budget that we voted on. So this is an addition, right?
The select board is queried. Mr. Parker.
This has to do with the municipal building refuse, which we were questioned on in the previous discussion, as well as the recycling. So that's what this article is. This does not have to do with your pay-as-you-throw right now.
Further discussion, Article 15. Mrs. Staropinski, can we get her a microphone, please?
I was wondering, because of the way that it's written, if part of that is the recycling of the compost that we were just told is no longer mandatory. It's part of that $108,000. Does that include that?
The select board is queried. Mr. Parker or Mr. Spencer?
Mr. Spencer, please correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that the compost mentioned here has to do with our cow bins at the town garage. Yes.
Further discussion, Article 15. Seeing none, the recurring question is that the voters appropriate $108,000 for municipal building refuse, curbside recycling, and compost recycling to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established solid waste fund. All those in favor of the article, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. We passed Article 15. Article 16, shall the voters appropriate $14,518 for the Wyndham Solid Waste District assessment to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established solid waste fund. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Parker.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the voters appropriate $14,518 for the Wyndham Solid Waste District assessment to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established solid waste fund.
Second. Moved and seconded that the voters appropriate $14,518 for the Wyndham Solid Waste District assessment to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established solid waste fund. Discussion on the motion. Well, anybody wish to speak to the motion?
Mr. Moderator, I know
Mr. Parker.
that we had received a decent amount of information from Mr. Spencer. It is all available over there on the table, and it just talks about everything that we are discussing here. So that might be a place to get the information that you're looking for more. So on this, in reference to Article 16, I will read the last paragraph, anybody that has it. As a member of the Wyndham Solid Waste, the town is assessed an annual fee which in fiscal year 21 will be $14,518. This cost has decreased the past 3 years from $19,197 to $15,162 in fiscal year 20. The town is obligated to pay this annual assessment unless it officially withdraws from Wyndham Solid Waste, which would take 2 years in accordance to the Wyndham Solid Waste Charter from the state of Vermont. Due to significant state mandates, particularly providing 2 household hazardous waste collection events per year, most towns decide to remain members of the Wyndham Solid Waste rather than provide the mandated services. And we just had one of those in the town office parking lot this year. So.
Further discussion on Article 16. Mrs. Staropinski, if nobody else will speak, you'll be recognized for a second time.
I just wanted to say we don't have any more forms. I passed them out to people when they came in. So they will need to either come to the town office or look online because it's been posted online.
Thank you. Your town clerk was keeping his copier budget down. Further discussion on Article 16. Mr. Brzezinski.
Thank you. I'm Don Brzezinski. Just reading Article 15 and then going to Article 16, and we're paying an assessment of $14,518. What do we get from Wyndham Solid Waste for that money? I guess that's my question.
The Select Board and/or Mr. Spencer was queried.
Mr. Spencer.
Defer to Mr. Spencer, please.
Mr. Spencer.
Speaking as the director of Wyndham Solid Waste, I get asked that question a lot, especially since 2 years ago the members of the district voted to close our recycling plant after 20-some years. So the boxes that we had at the highway garage for bottles and cans, paper and cardboard, they went away. So then the question is, well, what does Wyndham Solid Waste District do for the towns? As Chris read, probably the most expensive function that saves the town's money is our 4 household hazardous waste collection events a year, which we move around the district. We just had it in Vernon this year. That event in Vernon cost approximately $20-some thousand. It's very expensive, and by rotating the location, we are able to provide this to hundreds of residents in the district. And I have numbers on exactly how many Vernon residents participate. We also run it every fall in Brattleboro, and a lot of Vernon residents come to that too. So that's probably the number one dollar value. In addition, we comply with a state plan called the Solid Waste Implementation Plan, which all towns are obligated to have. So being a member, that plan, which is being updated this year, meets that requirement for our member towns. We have 18 member towns. And then we have an education and outreach program where we do education in the schools as well as with businesses. And again, a town would have to do this on its own if they were not a member of a district, and hire some other consultant or a town employee to do the mandated education outreach components. So there's actually quite a few things that benefit the town financially. We've also been cutting our expenses. As Chris read, we've reduced them 3 years in a row. We have a very lean staff. I have 1 full-time employee that works with the education outreach, and I'm part-time, and 3 other people are part-time. And then we have our transfer station staff of 4 people that run that 6 days a week. So we also have a new representative to the district that the select board just appointed. So you have a representation at the district's meetings and a vote on our budget and what we do. So I'd be glad to try to answer any more questions.
Further discussion on Article 16. Seeing none, the article is the motion that the voters appropriate $14,518 for the Wyndham Solid Waste District assessment to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established Solid Waste Fund. All those in favor of Article 16 as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You have passed Article 16. Article 17. Shall the voters establish an emergency repair replacement fund to cover urgent unbudgeted expenses for the repair or replacement of town property and/or equipment costing over $500? Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Dunkley.
I move that the voters establish an emergency repair replacement fund to cover urgent, unbudgeted expenses for the repair or replacement of town property and/or equipment costing over $500.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded that the voters establish an emergency repair replacement fund to cover urgent unbudgeted expenses for the repair or replacement of town property and/or equipment costing over $500. Mr. Dunkley, do you or any other board member wish to speak to the motion?
I'll speak very briefly about it. Basically, and Cindy, the town treasurer, should correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's example of some items that, you know, with town property that we have difficulty figuring out how to pay for on an emergency basis. I'll give you a couple examples. You know, if a town well goes dry, the drilling cost won't be over $10,000. Septic replacement, possibly. So I guess anybody else can jump in if they can think of some other urgent items that we need this flexibility for.
Further discussion on Article number 17. Back of the room, Mr. Hicks.
I'm just wondering if there is not a simpler, cheaper way of handling this. One thing we sort of love to do here is set up funds. We have more funds than almost any, you know, than we have real money. The question is, each one of those funds actually does cost us money to administer by the bank charges or the investment company charges. So they do add up a little bit. And I'm just wondering if there's not a simpler way to add a line item to the select board budget to simply say we have a reserve line item of $10,000 to be used for this purpose.
The select board is queried. Mrs. Turnley.
Cindy Turnley, Treasurer. We did have a line item in the selectmen's budget, and the selectmen decided to remove it and ask if we could make a fund. So it was taken out of the budget this year, and they're asking for us whether you want to have a fund for items over $500 but less than $10,000 in emergency situations.
Further discussion? Ms. Card.
Anything that's a line item in a budget, if it's not spent that year, it disappears. So you've funded it, you've paid your taxes to fund it, and if it doesn't get spent, it's gone. When you develop a fund, whatever is in there will stay there. It's designated for those very specific things that the fund was developed for, and it will keep building. So if it doesn't get used, it will continue to build. It won't just disappear at the end of the year because it wasn't used.
Further discussion, Article 17, Mr. Kosis.
This fund, is it, are there any constraints to have to go back out for bidding on these? It looks like with an emergency repair, does it still go out to bid, or is it just a, we need it and we're gonna, so we're not using, the revenue as best we can? I'd like to know if this article will be setting up for this fund if the select board still has to go out for 3 bids and do it go find the product for the best price to make most of use of this money if we're gonna go approve this.
The board is queried, Mrs. Harris.
We do have a bid policy. It can be waived by the select board but it's seldom waived. But we do have a bid policy, and as Jean said, if you raise it in a fund, you're only taxed on it once. If you raise it in the budget, you're taxed on it every year.
Okay. And so 16 is anything over 500 is setting up the fund, and then 17 is going to be throwing $10,000 into it.
Right.
Actually, it's 17 that is setting up the fund.
Oh, sorry, 17, 18, excuse me. Thank you.
Further discussion on Article 17? Seeing none, the article is that the voters establish an emergency repair replacement fund to cover urgent, unbudgeted expenses for the repair or replacement of town property and their equipment costing over $500. All those in favor of the article as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. We passed Article 17. Article 18. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established emergency repair replacement fund from Article 17? Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Dunkley.
I move that the voters appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established emergency repair replacement fund.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded that the voters appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established emergency repair replacement fund. Discussion on the motion. Seeing this young lady, please come to the microphone.
Julie Nevins. Where does the number $10,000 come from, and how does that relate to how money that was previously a line item was spent or not spent? An average maybe is fine.
The Select Board is queried. Mrs. Harris.
It's for items up to $10,000, so if something came in at 9, we don't want someone to pad their bid to bring it up to over 10. So 10,000 was what is the threshold. Do you see what I meant?
Can I clarify?
Sure.
I'm just wondering how it's related to how that money has previously been spent, if it's been a line item that we're not spending.
Okay, previously we would take it from the emergency repair fund. No, the other capital fund, right, Cindy?
Mrs.
No, Cindy will answer this one.
Mrs. Turnley?
Cindy Turnley, Treasurer. We had a line item in the Selectmen's budget that we took it from, and we used it for, one time we had a water leak in the Selectmen's room. We had to have someone come and clean it up. We had our pump go in our well. We had to have that replaced, and a few other things. The reason the 10,000 is because we have a emergency capital fund for items 10,000 or more. But this is for like between 500 and 10,000 is what they want to set this fund up for. You're welcome.
Further discussion on Article number 18. Seeing none, the motion is that the voters appropriate a sum of $10,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established emergency repair replacement fund. All those in favor of Article 18, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You passed Article 18. Article number 19. Shall the voters establish the office of Lister and authorize the Select Board to contract with or employ a professionally qualified assessor as provided by Title 17, subsection 2651C of the Vermont statutes annotated. Ms. Carr.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we object to consideration of this article.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that we object to consideration of this article. Again, it is not able to be debated and does require a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of not considering, or in effect, what we call passing over Article 19, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You have passed over Article 19. Again, the phrase object to consideration is the correct term under Robert's Rules of Order, but Vermont state law also calls it Passover, since Passover also is known as a Jewish holiday. Article number 20. Shall the purpose of the Professional Service Fund be amended to include representation of the town of Vernon on issues relating to utilities and industrial scale development? Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Dunkley.
I move that the purpose of the Professional Services Fund be amended to include representation of the town of Vernon on issues relating to utilities and industrial scale development.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded, the purpose of the Professional Service Fund be amended to include representation of the town of Vernon on issues relating to utilities and industrial scale development. Mr. Dunkley, do you wish to speak to your motion, or does any board member wish to do so?
Again, briefly. So the Professional Services Fund is strictly geared towards only utilities. And as far as industrial scale development, we may need counsel for looking at repurposing the VY site. So this is the reason for amending the purpose.
Further discussion on Article number 20. Mrs. Barrier, please. Those chairs are hard, aren't they?
Yeah, I just wanted some clarification. Professional Services Fund, so we're paying for people like electricians, engineers, those kinds of people?
The board is queried. Mr. Dunkley?
No, it's strictly for legal and professional counsel dealing with utilities. It's not for electrical work or anything of that sort.
Mr. Hicks?
Just a point of clarification, if you don't mind. Industrial scale development. What does that mean?
Board is queried.
And what are its limits? Are we only talking about the VY space, or is this a general expansion of fund to use wherever someone decides industrial scale development applies?
Mr. Dunkley or Mr. Parker?
I'm going to ask Cindy to chime in here as well, that because we had looked at this before and the legal counsel was separate, and then there was some question on when we got into the VY redevelopment, whether some of that legal counsel carried over or whether we needed to word that differently, and I believe that's how we got here. Yes.
Mrs. Turnley is also queried if she chooses.
Chris Parker's correct.
Further discussion on Article 20. Mr. Hicks, you are allowed a follow-up since no one else is looking to speak.
Sorry, it's just a clarification that I was looking for, and I'm still confused about what that actual phrase applies to. Is it simply to the VY space, or is it going to be available, this council available to other industrial sites that may or may not come along?
Mr. Parker.
Yes, it's there for anything industrial that would come to town that we might need legal clarification for, or any of that didn't fall under that other line item. And we kind of felt that was too big of a gray area to leave there without putting some clarity on that, which is turning out to not clarify it at all.
Yes.
Further discussion on the article. Seeing none, the article is that the purpose of the Professional Service Fund be amended to include representation of the town of Vernon on issues relating to utilities and industrial scale development. All those in favor of Article 20, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You passed Article 20. Article 21, shall the voters appropriate $100,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the town road upgrading fund. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Dunkley.
I move that the voters appropriate $100,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the town road upgrading fund.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded, the voters appropriate $100,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the town road upgrading fund. Mr. Dunkley, or board members, or Mr. Walker, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I don't.
Mr. Walker, do you wish to come speak to things?
Seems it didn't make it into this book, so everybody knows this will be for our homestead in Lily Pond. They'll be regrinding the whole thing and paving them.
Further discussion on Article 21.
Dave, I'm not sure why you want $100,000 to pave those two roads. We haven't had an increase of population on those roads. You've got almost $100,000 already under road maintenance budget, separate from your town garage budget. Seems to me $100,000 is an awfully big chunk that for roads we might not need.
Those
Mr.
roads
Walker.
are falling apart. Homestead hasn't been touched since I've been here, and I've been here 30 years. Lily Pond has been over 25 years. And I really don't want to deplete the fund because you're going to have all your other roads eventually that are going to need it too. We've been just maintaining, it's usually over 100,000 we spend, we've been just maintaining it.
Further discussion on Article number 21. Seeing none, the motion is that the voters appropriate $100,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the town road upgrading fund. All those in favor of Article 21 as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You've passed Article 21. Article 22, shall the voters appropriate $40,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the town culvert fund. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Dunkley.
I move that the voters appropriate $40,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the town culvert fund.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded, the voters appropriate $40,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the town culvert fund. Does the board or Mr. Walker wish to speak to that question? Mr. Walker.
We started this fund a few years ago. We got a culvert on Tyler Hill Road. It's for the box culverts. That's going to be over $400,000. And going through this year with what the state rules are, any culvert over 3 foot, we have to go through them. We're going to have 25 culverts. We're going to have to go through the state. So we're going to be planning on a lot of money in the future.
Any further discussion on Article 22? Gentleman coming up here, please state your name.
My name's Chad Baldwin. I am new to this town. I have a question. If it's on your income, why is it not increased every year? Why do we keep adding to it? That's the whole point of an inventory.
The town road commissioner is queried.
This was put in a fund so we could start raising the money because of all the culverts that are going to be coming up. It's going to be, all of them will be over $200,000.
But wouldn't you put that in your budget?
We could do it that way to raise the money.
The select board is also queried if they so choose. Mrs. Harris.
Try to remember, if we put it in the budget, you raise it by taxes every year. If you put it in a fund, we do not have to raise it every year unless you're adding money to it.
Further discussion on Article 22. And seeing none, the article is as read, that the voters appropriate $40,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the town culvert fund. All those in favor of Article 22, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay, please. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. We passed Article 22. Article 23. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $2,500 to be raised by taxes to fund the town parking lots maintenance fund? Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Dunkley.
I move that the voters appropriate the sum of $2,500 to be raised by taxes to fund the town parking lots maintenance fund.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded, the voters appropriate a sum of $2,500 to be raised by taxes to fund the town parking lots maintenance fund. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 23 as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You have passed Article 23. Article 24, shall the voters appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established Elderly Assistance Fund. The chair would recognize Mary Lynn Sherlin for the purposes of making a motion. Is she? Yes, she is here. Thought I saw you out there.
I make a motion to appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established Elderly Assistance Fund.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, the voters appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established Elderly Assistance Fund. Do you wish to speak to your motion? Which means you do.
Yes, yes, I do. No.
Please continue.
The Elderly Assistance Fund, we have been primarily in the more recent years been doing snow plowing. The winters have been fairly good to us the last couple of years. We haven't had a lot of other requests for assistance, so our funds have remained fairly healthy. So we felt $5,000 was probably enough to keep us going in case something really major came along. So.
Thank you. Further discussion on Article 24. Mr. Kosis.
How much money's in the fund currently for this elderly?
Mrs. Turnley is queried. The current balance in the fund is $49,358.55.
So it's almost $50,000 already in there.
That's correct.
How much do we take out every winter or season for the?
Last fiscal year, we spent $9,276.42. So far this current year, we've spent $5,981.25.
So we're almost half of what we've spent last year this year. So can we, I'd like to see this voted down. It's got plenty of money in there for a few years. If we're using just $10,000 a year on a bad winter, can we just, the way these articles are going, it's a lot of money. It's going to add up to a lot for us. There's plenty of money. Can we vote this down and save ourselves some, it's only $5,000, but it's going to add up through the course of the rest of these committees and funds that still have a ton of money in their coffers. So thank you.
Further discussion on Article 24. Seeing none, looks like you are ready for the question. The motion is that the voters appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established Elderly Assistance Fund. All those in favor of Article 24, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The chair is in doubt. I'll use our BCA as checkers. All those in favor of Article 24 as read, please stand. And you hold up your voter cards when you stand, please. Make sure that you're a voter.
Giving them. You gotta stand up. To give them my $5,000. You call it. Yeah, Sean does agree. Balance. Would have large numbers. But here it's. Yeah. didn't understand.
Please be seated. All those opposed to Article number 24, please stand and hold your voter cards up.
And this one time, I think we could bypass it for a year or two. Well, you didn't say who it was, so it's oh, huh? Oh, it is? Okay. Well, I thought you turned that off.
Please be seated. Listen to the results of your vote for Article 24. We are still in order, people. Thank you. Article 24, the results of your vote. Voting yes, 65. Voting no, 73. I declare Article 24 has been defeated. Article 25, shall the voters appropriate the sum of $1,100 to be raised by taxes to fund the Vernon historians for the purposes of record preservation, retention, and promotion of history, educational initiatives, and insurance coverage. Is Heather Frost available to make that motion? Pop over here, Heather.
Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $1,100 to be raised by taxes to fund the Vernon historians for the purpose of records preservation, retention, and promotion of history, educational initiatives, and insurance coverage?
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion, as previously stated, as I heard it, I move that the voters appropriate the sum of $1,100 to be raised by taxes to fund the Vernon historians for the purposes of record preservation, retention, and promotion of history, educational initiatives, and insurance coverage. Do you wish to speak to your motion, Ms. Frost? Discussion on Article 25. Seeing none. Again, all those in favor of Article 25 as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You passed Article 25. Article 26. Shall the voters appropriate $2,000 to be raised by taxes to fund a public fireworks display? Is there a motion? Ms. Carr.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the voters appropriate the sum of $2,000 to be raised by taxes to fund a public fireworks display.
Second.
Moved and seconded. The voters appropriate the sum of $2,000 to be raised by taxes to fund a public fireworks display. Discussion on the motion. Mrs. Gant.
Mr. Moderator, I would like to amend this article so that it will cover the minimum due for a fireworks show, which is $5,000.
So that means you want to increase the bottom line to $5,000.
I do.
Do we have a second? Second. Moved and seconded that the bottom line on the article be increased to $5,000. Do you wish to speak to your motion? Or amendment, excuse me.
Last year, I said that we could raise the money for this year because I had great faith in this town. We currently have $1,389.44 for fireworks. Obviously, that is not enough for the minimum due. I am yay close to needing to cancel the fireworks show with Atlas and not give them a contract because I've inquired and asked for help and nobody has donated, nobody has stepped up because I don't have a lot of time to do it myself this year. And so if you raise it to $5,000, that means in the next coming years, you're at least guaranteed a $5,000 fireworks show. The show you had last year was actually $7,200 because of how we voted at town meeting a couple years ago. So, yeah.
All right, further discussion on the proposed amendment. Mr. Barrier.
I think there are a lot of people in Vernon that don't necessarily turn out for the fireworks. We have a lot of people from out of town often that come. We have surrounding towns that have fireworks. Coincidentally, Northfield always does theirs in West Northfield, so it's really close. Brattleboro has a fabulous fireworks program that they fund. They're also much bigger. And this might sound like a cheap shot, but we're not finding $5,000 for the senior citizens, for the Elderly Assistance Fund. Why are we funding something as frivolous as fireworks?
Further discussion on the Gant amendment? Mr. Gant.
The previous statement is correct. We do have a lot of towns around us that have great firework shows. We also have a great rec department here, and there is a lot of people from those towns that come to Vernon and end up going to our rec department and getting used to coming to our town and pouring money into our town. It wasn't mentioned yet this year, but if I remember right, the rec department is the one line item that actually makes money here. So why aren't we investing back into it and trying to get people to come to this town, get used to utilizing us for what we do have? Thank you.
Further discussion on the Gant amendment? Over here, please come to the microphone.
Hi, John Wielden. Couple things. Is it not just help the rec department? Also helps out the fire department as well. We help raise money through that at night. It's not a lot, but it's some money to help out with items that we want to purchase. The other thing is there's other ways of helping out with raising the money, and I know Hannah's been doing great with doing all that stuff. I've put money into that for my business. I've put money into that. I actually would like to put a challenge out to all the businesses in town to match $500 that I'm going to put for the next 3 years into the fireworks display. So hopefully maybe the businesses will come forth with the challenge. And I think we should keep going with it. Thank you.
Further discussion on the Gant amendment? And seeing no further hands up, the amendment proposed by Hannah Gant was to increase the bottom line on Article 26 to $5,000. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays have it. The amendment has been defeated. We go back to the original article for the voters to appropriate a sum of $2,000 to be raised by taxes to fund a public fireworks display. Further discussion on the article.
Julie Nevins. I would just like to note that although the money for the $5,000 for the seniors was turned down, for the record I voted for it, that fund was not in deficit. And could you please correct me, Ms. Gant, Mrs. Gant, that your fund currently is in deficit, or would be if we were to spend the amount proposed on fireworks this year?
We don't have money to spend on fireworks.
We need to be able to hear you. Ian's going to give you a microphone.
We can't. Is it on?
Yes.
We can't have a fireworks show at this exact moment this year, and I need to be able to give that contract to Atlas like yesterday. We only have $1,389.44, and we need a minimum of $5 for them to even consider coming to us.
Thank you.
Further discussion, Mrs. Turnley.
The $5,000 that you're voting on is not for this.
Mrs. Turnley?
$2,000, I'm sorry, that you're voting on is not for this year's fireworks display. It's for the following year. So it's not going to help with this one.
Mr. Gant.
Just to add to what Mrs. Sternley just said, the $2,000 is also not going to help us get fireworks for next year either. If we don't have one this year, we add $2,000 to the coffer for next year, we still don't meet the minimum for a fireworks display. Just so you're all aware.
Further discussion on Article 26? Back of the room. Could you come up and get it? The question has been called. Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. We cease debate. All those in favor of ceasing debate on Article 26, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You cease debate. Article 26 is read. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $2,000 to be raised by taxes to fund a public fireworks display? All those in favor of the article, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays have it. You have rejected Article 26. Article 27. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $3,250 to be raised by taxes to support visiting nurse and hospice of Vermont and New Hampshire? Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator.
Mrs. Harris.
I move that the voters appropriate the sum of $3,250 to be raised by taxes to support visiting nurse and hospice of Vermont and New Hampshire.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that the voters appropriate the sum of $3,250 to be raised by taxes to support visiting nurse and hospice of Vermont and New Hampshire. Do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, this is a very worthy group. They come in when our people need them, and they stay until they're no longer needed.
Your name, and are you a Vernon resident?
I'm not. Terry Highland, I'm the visiting nurse.
So unless there's objection, we will allow you to speak. So please continue.
All right. Nice to see everyone again. I came this year with some new information. We have some massive federal changes coming down through CMS, Medicare, which we receive over 92% of our funding through that service. The program is called PDGM, and it's the first time in 20 years that Medicare has changed their reimbursement structure for post-acute care. That includes nursing homes and places like us, visiting nurse associations. So after you leave the hospital but still need continuing care. They're changing how that is reimbursed from what they called pay per service, which was established in 2004, to patient-driven grouping model, PDGM for short. It is a value-based reimbursement. So depending on the patient's needs, how acute they are, they might be paid more, sort of like the equalized pupil statement that was made earlier, very similar. And if it's a low need, if it's a fairly simple service, we'd be reimbursed less. However, both needs may require a registered nurse or physical therapist, et cetera, who get paid the same, right? So our initial estimates, and this went live January 1, and then so far our estimates are, in this first quarter, sort of making sense. We anticipated between 4 and 7% revenue loss this year. So that's somewhere between $1 and $2 million of our annual budget, which will be leaving us. So in a time like now, not 20 years, have town appropriations been more important to our mission. Throughout Vermont and New Hampshire, we bring in around $650,000 annually in town appropriations. So the small amount of $3,250 from Vernon obviously helps with that. We have some towns giving $65,000 where they're seeing nearly 700 patients a year. Vernon at $3,250, we saw 33 patients last year, 561 home visits. That doesn't include our monthly clinic at the community room below the library, where we do blood pressures and general wellness checks. So that's really about it, and I can answer other questions. I'll respect everybody's time, so I won't go on with more facts. I'll just wait for questions.
Further discussion on Article number 27. Mr. Gant.
I would just ask that we vote consistently. We already voted down helping out our seniors, and we voted down giving town picnic for the kids. If we don't have money to spend on our own seniors and our kids, we don't have money for hospice. Please vote it down.
Further discussion on the article. Mr. Kosis.
Thank you. Just clarification, the elderly assistance situation, the snow plowing, they have $50,000 in their account, so they're funded for a few years. The hospice, having my mother gone through it for 8 weeks before she passed, and seeing the care that they do, they were with her all the time, just a fantastic, it takes a special type of person to be a hospice nurse. Fantastic. But my question is, the money needed, is that our contribution to the county, or how does that fit into, is it just, just wondering how that works, that's all.
The gentleman from hospice is queried.
Yes, good question. So that goes directly to us, the entity, a nonprofit, VNA, Visiting Nurse Association, and it does go into our general fund. It's not limited specifically to this town. I will state, however, that it offsets approximately $22,000 last year in charity care just in Vernon. Our total charity care for the year for the state, for example, just so we see the scale here, is a little over $4.5 million annually that we don't get reimbursed on.
Further discussion on Article 27, Mrs. O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just want to say that I think the one thing I've been the most proud of in all the years that I've represented this town is to watch how we always took care of each other. We've always been a town that's prided ourselves on being there for our neighbor. The years that I was a state representative, many, many times I called on them to come help a neighbor of ours and to take care of them, and they were always there. There are many elderly people in this community who, through no fault of their own, are alone, need help, they need care, and without the visiting nurse, they will literally stay in their homes without any good quality care at all. And I think we're better than this. This is literally pennies for each one of our homes.
Further discussion on Article number 27, Ms. Lockever.
As many of you know, 6 years ago I had both knees replaced, and then 2 years after that I had a revision in my left knee, and if I couldn't go anywhere, and so they had to come to me, and it was visiting nurses of Vermont and New Hampshire, and they came to me, and it was, I wholly endorse this motion.
Further discussion on Article 27.
Call the question.
Moved and seconded that we cease debate. All those in favor of ceasing debate, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We have ceased debate. The article is Article 27. Question is whether the voters appropriate the sum of $3,250 to be raised by taxes to support visiting nurse and hospice of Vermont and New Hampshire. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You've passed Article 27. Article 28. Shall the voters appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the operation of the Emergency Management Office? Mrs. Harris.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the voters appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be raised by taxes for the operation of the Emergency Management Office.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. The voters appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be raised by taxes for the operation of the Emergency Management Office. Do you wish to speak to your motion?
I'll defer to Dave Emery.
Mr. Emery, the town's Emergency Management Director, is in the House. He is not a Vernon resident. However, we will allow him to speak unless you object.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. However, I do plan on being a resident next year. So, having said that, Vermont emergency management, as we speak, and probably the thing that you're most interested right now is the virus. And as of this evening, the governor has set up a task force, which includes emergency management in all the towns as part of that, so that we will be up to speed on whatever needs to be done. So anything that comes out of the state of Vermont through the Department of Health, et cetera, will filter down through our office, emergency management. However, a lot of that information obviously is going to be your responsibility to find out where and what needs to be done. So having said that, just so that you know where that goes. Emergency management every year, we are deeply involved with the schools this year, rewriting the programs for the unfortunate shooting incidents and everything else that takes place. So we have a great program going with the principal, and she's really on top of that. I would say that you should be proud of her because she takes emergency stuff very seriously. We meet with the fire department, with the sheriff's department. We participate in unified command. as well as with the fire department this year, we're sponsoring a train derailment training, which will be held here, which will include fire department and emergency services from around the community. So we are fortunately been really quiet, and I knock on wood with that one. But that's what we do annually. The budget is $15,000. I'm pretty tight with that. The office is eventually going to have to move. As you know, we're in the building known as the old Edson House, and eventually, probably within some period, we'll probably be asked to leave, and so we're looking at relocating the office either to the town hall, but that's going to require an expenditure of putting emergency power in there. And some renovations, or to the firehouse, which would require adding a building or adding to their building. So we're still jumping between both of those and haven't made that decision yet. Any questions?
Further discussion on Article 28? I see no questions, so therefore, all those in favor of the article as read, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You passed Article 28 as presented. Article 29, shall the voters appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established Vernon Farmland Protection Fund. Chair recognizes Art Miller for the purpose of making a motion.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I move that the town appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established Vernon Farmland Protection Fund.
Second.
Moved and seconded that the voters appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established Vernon Farmland Protection Fund. Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Tim. As the town knows, we've set aside over 200 acres, I believe, the last 2 years here in the town of Vernon to purchase the development rights. That's a lot of land set aside, especially quite rapidly in the last couple of years. The fund had a little over, around $400,000 in it, and it's currently around $220,000. We had spent the money, obviously, to buy the development rights. Last year, we voted $20,000 to build the fund up a bit. It's the Farmland Protection Committee's opinion that we're targeting to raise about $250,000 total for the fund, and then kind of level, stop asking for the appropriations at that level. So we're intending to ask for $15,000 this year, $15,000 next year, assuming we get the approval. The reason why we think $250,000 is a good level to have, much of the farmland that people are intending to sell the development rights have already sold that. Basically, Dunkleys have a little bit left, Blodgetts have a lot left, Millers have a lot left. Millers aren't intending to at this point, and we have spoken to Don Blodgett. He, at this point, is not intending to set any aside, but he may in the future. And so we feel that 250 is a good target for us. Again, we're asking for $15,000 this year, and assuming the approval, we intend to ask for another $15,000 next year, and then not ask for any more for a while.
Thank you. Further discussion on Article 29. In the back of the room, Mr. Kosis.
Thank you. I just want to find out how much is about $200,000 in the coffers right now, correct?
220, yes.
220. Again, we're looking at how much we're looking at the special education needs of the elementary school here. That's what, up 85%? It's going to climb up to, they said. Is there a way for some of these committees, and I got a couple acres myself, and I raise goats, I get it, but there's a point when these expenditures, these insurances and the special needs are going up so fast. It's $15,000 here, 20. These committees, when they defer and return some money back to the town to offset some of these crazy expenditures of, say, the special needs for the elementary school? Can that happen? Because you had $50,000 for the elderly. They used 5 this year. The Farmland Protection's got $220,000. I mean, look at this. Those are big accounts. And here we are, we got kids that are, special needs are going to need, what's that, 300? I don't know, 85% is going to increase, so that's a lot of money. That's got to come out from somewhere. And I think some of these committees, hate to say it, sometimes we got to maybe tighten our belt a bit. Maybe these committees need to be kind of dealt with a little for a few years and offset so we can save some of this money and use it where it may need to be. Thank you.
Further discussion on the article, the board is responding. Mrs. Harris.
Unfortunately, the school and the town are two different countries when it comes to money.
Further discussion on article number 29. Seeing no further discussion, all those Mr. Belville, please step forward.
Jim Belville. I would move to support this because when it comes to land development, usually it's one of those things, you get a shot at it, and if you don't have the money there, you miss your chance. And 250 is a pretty safe number looking at land parcels. If you got a chance to buy a good parcel of land, 250 if you're buying large acreage is pretty good. So I think it's a wise decision to go there and get there slowly so that we're not jumping on it now.
Thank you. Further discussion on the article. Seeing none, the motion as read that the voters appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be raised by taxes to fund the previously established Vernon Farmland Preservation Fund. All those in favor of the article, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You passed Article 29. Article 30. Shall the voters amend the James Cusick scholarship requirements, which presently reads, each full-time resident recipient shall receive $1,000 or the amount voted for 2 semesters at an institution of higher learning, a certified training center, or a vocational school. If the amount of the appropriation is not sufficient, it shall be divided equally among the students selected, with the number of recipients and the amount of scholarship provided to each shall be determined based on the money available. Is there a motion? Ms. Carr.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the voters amend the James Cusick scholarship requirements, which presently read, each full-time resident recipient shall receive $1,000 or the amount voted for 2 semesters at an institution of higher learning, a certified training center, or a vocational school. If the amount of the appropriation is not sufficient, it shall be divided equally among the students selected, with the number of recipients and the amount of the scholarship provided to each student shall be determined based on the money available.
Moved and seconded that the voters amend the James Cusick scholarship requirements, which presently read, each full-time resident recipient shall receive $1,000 or the amount voted for 2 semesters of an institution of higher learning, a certified training center, or a vocational school. If the amount of the appropriation is not sufficient, it will be divided equally among the students selected, with the number of recipients and the amount of the scholarship provided to each shall be determined based on money available. Discussion on the motion, Ms. Carr?
I believe these changes were requested because the fund is no longer funded by the town, so it is just drawn on. So we need to kind of preserve what's there. We can't give it out the way we had been.
Mrs. Turnley, is there a current accounting of the status of the Cusick Scholarship Fund?
Cindy Turnley, treasurer. There's $17,047.76 in the fund right now.
Thank you. Further discussion on article number 30. I believe Mr. Pond is coming to the microphone. Nice hat, George.
Yeah. I'm not against this, but I'm curious. When the students that are selected for this scholarship fund, are they expected to keep a certain grade point average? Or is this, I went to school this year, I'm going to school next year, but I was a D student, but I can still have some money?
Mrs. Harris.
Yes, they can have some money, but they have to have proof how many hours they took.
The question is, are they expected to have a grade point average?
No.
They should be.
Further discussion on Article number 30?
Julie Nevins, how many students benefit from this program annually?
I know of 4.
Mrs. Turnley.
This year, we gave out 20 full scholarships and 1 half scholarship.
Further discussion on Article number 30? Seeing none, we're going to go for the question. All those in favor of Article 30 as presented, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You passed Article 30. Article 31. Shall the voters authorize payment of real and personal property taxes to the town treasurer in 3 installments, with the due dates being September 10th of 2020, January 14th, 2021, and May 6th of 2021. Mrs. Harris.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the voters authorize payment of real and personal property taxes to the town treasurer in 3 installments, with the due dates being September 10th, 2020, January 14th, 2021, and May 6th, 2021.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded that the voters authorize payment of real and personal property taxes to the town treasurer in 3 installments. The due date September 10th, 2020, January 14th, 2021, and May 6th of 2021. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none. All those in favor of Article number 31 as presented, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. You passed Article 31. Article 32, shall the voters approve the provision of notice of availability of the town report and auditor's report by postcard mailed to all registered voters at least 30 days prior to town meeting, in lieu of mailing or otherwise distributing the town report and auditor's report as authorized by Vermont law and 24 VSA subsection 1682A2. Is there a motion?
Mr. Moderator.
Mrs. Harris.
I move that the voters approve the provision of notice of availability of the town report and auditor's report by postcard mailed to all registered voters at least 30 days prior to town meeting, in lieu of mailing or otherwise distributing the town report and auditor's report as authorized by Vermont law and 24 VSA subsection 1682A2.
Is there a second? Oh, good, we have a second. The motion is that the voters approve the provision of notice of availability of the town report and auditor's report by postcard mailed to all registered voters at least 30 days prior to town meeting, in lieu of mailing or otherwise distributing the town report and auditor's report as authorized by Vermont law and 24 VSA subsection 1682A2. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 32, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. They have it. You passed Article 32. Article 33. Any other business that may be allowed to come before this meeting? Ms. Lockever.
I just want to remind folks to fill out the broadband survey. We need to know your internet needs and concerns. And the link is wyndhamregional.org/broadband survey. And we need this information by March 17th. Thank you.
Mrs. Harris.
I'd like to defer to Chris. I forgot to ask him to say something earlier.
Mr. Parker is recognized. You're on, Chris.
Oh, boy. I just wanted to take a minute and ask our highway guys to stand up, our fire department, our treasurer, our clerks, anybody that is an employee of this town. I think that they deserve a round of applause for getting us through everything that we go through in town.
Anything else under Article 33? I'm going to take the moderator's prerogative and say something. Right in the back? Did somebody want to speak? Mr. Belleville, you go for it first.
All right. I'm going to take, I don't know, fairly unpopular look at things. We just went through a whole bunch of articles. We had 2 we voted down to the tune of $10,000. Now, if you do the math on those $10,000 that we saved ourselves, eliminating the fireworks, eliminating the elderly, which here's debate whether or not they need it, but if they needed it, they would be without. But by eliminating those 2 things, you saved $12 a household. $12 to eliminate the fireworks. Okay? $12 to, put off the $5,000 for the elderly. I understand times are tight, budgets are tight, you want to save some money. But for $12, you basically gave a raspberry to 2 big sections of this town. The people that enjoy the fireworks, the fire department, it caps off their muster, it helps them raise some money. Now we don't have the fireworks unless somebody steps up to raise some money. As we know, nobody stepped up this year, so we don't have a fireworks this year unless somebody big comes through with some big money. People will try. Yes, but we're short because, times are tight. So think about it. For $12, we told those people for one reason or another that their projects didn't matter. Just think about that when you're looking at your budgets. I know we added about $500,000 to our overall budget. $562 a household. Okay? So, to the tune of, how much is that a week? $10 and change a week? No, $12, $11 a week to fund all these things, and for $12 we said no. So just think on that.
Further discussion under other business? Just from a town employee perspective, who's also been your moderator for 20 years, it has been an honor to serve you. We will continue to serve you. We will walk through walls for you. Come see us, come talk to us. I will now accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Good night, everybody.